Welcome back to the channel. Thanks very much for watching. I do appreciate it. In this video, I wanted to take a look at the promised build of my level 73 Deadeye Ranger, and specifically around the crossbow build that I've been using. Started building with the mercenary, got that mercenary to 56. You can watch my other videos for the kind of thinking behind that. In this video, I promised that I would explore my endgame character, level 73 Deadeye Ranger, using the same crossbow build, and specifically around the gems. The build is based upon explosive shot and specific support gems that go into that: scatter shot, martial tempo, and pierce. And if you've got a fourth slot unlocked, then you can fill it with any number of additional bonuses to the damage that you're doing. The build is a great one. It's great fun, as you saw in some of the clips that I've played before this. I've been rolling through maps around the T4, T5, T6 range without too many problems. Look, I'm not going to say that this is the fastest build, the most DPS, the most fun you'll have, the most complex rotation. In fact, it's quite the opposite of that. The idea behind the build is I'm lazy. When I play these games, I'm more concerned with actually moving, getting out of the way of problems, watching out for traps. We all know that, since the patch, they've done something to show where you might be sniped, or actually not realize that there's something under your feet and you're going to explode if you don't move. When you face bosses, the big bosses, then you know that at times they telegraph their attacks, and if you don't get out the way, it's a one-shot death. So I'm more concerned with movement. I have been since my Diablo 3 days, for example, and ARPGs before that. But really, that taught me a lot of things, like being able to dodge roll and also move out of the way. That's what I'm most concerned with. So this build is more about the fact that I can do easy damage, lazy damage, basically one button, two buttons at most. That's the idea behind it. And you can see that I also use heralds as well, Herald of Ash, Thunder, and Ice, to augment the damage that I do with my crossbow shot. But the real star of the show is, sorry, my explosive shot, but my crossbow in specifically, you can see the real star of the show is explosive shot. That's what happens, and we get a nice effect. Someone in the comments of one of my other videos on the mercenary side actually did say that it looks almost like a flamethrower when you're shooting it. It shoots 4 bolts. Okay, if we actually have a look at my at the explosive shot details, let's take a look at that. It's going to shoot 4 projectiles. Reason being is scatter shot gives us an extra 2, and then the ranger gives us an extra 1 on the Deadeye, and I'll go through the passive skills and also the ascendancy skills that I've chosen in a moment. But the idea is that because of the piercing support gem, and because of the scatter shot support gem, which obviously causes it to attack less quickly, I offset that with martial tempo. Really what you need is you need 3 slots, and you can get that in the level 20 range, 22 range, when you actually unlock and can get explosive shot. From then on, you're sailing up through the rest of standard act 1, 2, and 3, and cruel act 1, 2, and 3 into endgame. This works in endgame. It really does. Obviously, you've got to find ways to actually augment the damage sometimes. I do that with one skill that you'll see here in emergency reload. I don't want too many things that are going to get in the way. Like I said, it's a lazy build. I want one main damage dealing source. I don't want to have to set up 3 and 4 shot combos. The heralds are more like passive extra damage, and then the emergency reload also gives me a time period where, for a short time, and I usually use this for the rare and larger, more elite bosses or the end of level bosses, I will set up a time period where, for whatever it is, 6-7 seconds, I'm going to do extra damage to them. I could also use Plasma Blast when I'm facing single enemies like bosses, but what I find is that actually if I just shoot, several shots of explosive shot, even with the reload on the crossbow, it's pretty quick. I'm actually getting up to the levels that a single Plasma Blast could give me. And the reason I'm not a huge fan of Plasma Blast is you can be interrupted. So you can be storing up, your 2 seconds of Plasma Blast to make the shot, and you get interrupted in that time. 2 seconds is a long time when you're facing your bosses and your more elite monsters and that kind of stuff. So let me take you through the build, build core idea. You know, you can go in all sorts of directions with this. And I might add as well, I've put timestamps so that you can just skip ahead if you don't like my rambling. Okay. So let's take a look at the character first. 73 Deadeye. Honestly, this will work with Mercenary, the two types of Mercenary Ascendancies, the Gemling and the Witch Hunter. I proved it with the Witch Hunter. I don't see why it wouldn't work with the Gemling. And to be honest with you, the only thing that I have against the Gemling is because this is really just a one skill build, you know, as a core damage dealing skill, you know, having extra uses of your support gems. I don't know if that really works. So maybe some of the other gemling angles might help there. My reason for choosing the Ranger, because obviously this was the natural fit for me for the, you know, the mercenary, whether witch hunter or gemling. It obviously was going to be a crossbow-led build. I didn't go down the grenade route, and thanks to several commenters, you know who you are. I did call you out in some of the other videos. Several commenters kind of steered me. Initially, I was, you know, I was using high velocity rounds. I would still use that up until I get explosive shot. So if you're in your first 20 levels of your character, you know, high velocity shot, as soon as you can get that, I would use that with the crossbow and use that with scatter shot, martial tempo, and pierce as soon as you can. Then swap into explosive shot. Suddenly you're doing more damage. The reason that pierce is important for explosive shot, less important obviously for high velocity rounds, because by default that particular skill also pierces, but for explosive shot, we'll get into it in a minute, but the thinking behind piercing, again, a commenter very kindly put me right on the fact that actually you get two benefits. You get to pierce the enemy, they take damage from the projectile, then it explodes from the explosive shot, and you get your explosive damage as well, affecting your enemies. Now that's great, means you don't have to be spot on with your aiming, and your accuracy isn't as important, okay? I would say attack speed is more important. You know, things like reload, cast speed, these kinds of things, you know, can have an effect, but attack speed is all important because with a crossbow, naturally you're going less, you're attacking less. I did for a time try it with the crossbow, which gives you 2 bolts. I don't, you know, before you have to reload, I don't think that really works out particularly well after quite a bit of testing on that. It's not really necessary. Hence why I've got this particular kind of crossbow. By the way, on the, you know, so that's the core build, the idea behind the build. Explosive shot with those 3 support gems gives you everything you need into endgame. I'm not saying it's going to take you through to T15 maps and further, level 90s to 100s. I don't know because I'm at level 73. I feel like it will. I haven't seen much of a problem as long as you start to take your equipment and really tune that. You know, improve the quality of your support gems and skill gems and things like that. Run with certain spirit-led passive, you know, skills from the skill tree, and you're emphasizing things like that. I think that works very well and will probably last you well into endgame. I haven't hit any walls yet, and when I hit a wall, you know, in like, you know, T4, T5 maps, whatever it is, T6 maps, then I come back and I tune, and then I find I'm doing a bit better again. Okay, so, and that's the nature of these ARPGs. We have a core idea, we get used to it, we get good with it. You hit a wall, you go back and you get better equipment, you tune, you trade if you need to. Having said trading, I haven't traded for anything. I don't trade. It's not a choice. I just haven't got round to it, haven't felt the need for it. I like the crafting, okay? And so all of these, you know, gears that you see here, none of them are unique. I've got lots of uniques, by the way. That none of them really, you know, apply or have made any benefit beyond the ones that I've been able to craft. Okay, I've got lucky sometimes, but I'm looking for things like attack speed, number of attacks. Adding levels to projectile skills is great. Additional elemental damage for each shot, you know, is also very welcome, and so I gem for that. You know, I gem for things like, you know, mainly attack speed. On the boots, I'm looking for maximum movement speed. You can see my movement speed modifier is plus 40%. I want to go faster. If I can go faster, it means I can get out of the way quicker. In fact, one of the leaps forward that I had with my mercenary and then with the ranger as well, it was kind of a given once I got to the ranger, because I moved into the ranger after getting the mercenary to level 56, if I haven't said that already. The key with movement speed is it gets you out of the way of the bad stuff from the elite bosses. It allows you to get out of the way of packs of monsters that close in on you, hold you in, and beat you down to their death. You want to be able to roll out of the way, get out of the way as quickly as you can. So for me, I also want to blast through. I wanted to blast through the content in the campaigns, standard and cruel difficulty. I don't want to hang around. I just want to be, smashing things, blasting them, deleting screens, whatever you want to call it. A lot of people have said, not a lot of people, a few people have said that I've clickbaiting by saying, Merc deletes everyone or Ranger deletes everyone. It does. I mean, it just does. I don't have to hang around. Okay, when you get into the, a map that's clearly for your level or above, you're not going to be deleting screens of enemies with this, but it's not a build for that, and it's not a, it's a build that you can then slow down and take your time and be a bit more careful, work your way around corners and things like that. So from a gearing point of view, I'm looking for anything that raises attributes so that I can actually gem things that are appropriate. That's obvious. It will help things like accuracy to have more dexterity. But with this build, the explosive shot, I don't really care about accuracy. I don't. If I miss the monster, it explodes behind them. I still do some damage, which is great. And so the accuracy is less important here, but I would definitely say that things like life, from strength, don't ignore that, because the more life you have, the better. But there we go. Okay, and then you can, mix and match and test and prove to your heart's content as well. You'll see that I also have a bow. Well, that's just from a time when, as a ranger, you obviously have a bow and a quiver. For some of the, for a time I was using bow shots on the ice. So for the first 20 levels, I like there's a skill that you can use with the bow, where you're shooting and freezing enemies on on ice shots. I was using that just to augment the high velocity rounds, because that's not necessarily going to work for big groups of monsters. It's okay, but it's not great for that until you get explosive shot. Okay, so let's take a look at the passive skill tree and the ascendancy points. Ascendancy points, I've only got 4 or whatever it is, straight into getting endless munitions on the Deadeye track. So skills fire an additional projectile. That's what I wanted. It helps that I get better, projectile speed and things like that. That's great. You'll also see from the passives tree that I haven't been afraid to kind of dip down into the mercenary tree a little bit as well. Now, some people might say that that's inefficient. You can probably find nodes and all that. When I've done a search for things like movement speed, you'll see that areas of the mercenary tree do have movement speed modifiers sometimes, and so I'd be tempted over there. But really, why I went there was more attack speed, and so forth. You can see why I've gone over to that side of things was maybe because I wasn't finding all the attack speed modifiers I wanted in my ranger side of the passive tree. You'll also see that, for example, I've deleted some of the projectile damage, because actually a lot of my damage comes from the explosion of explosive shots. So, I haven't had to use those two. I got rid of them. And then most of the time I'm looking for movement speed. I'm looking for projectile speed, attack speed, well, less projectile speed, but certainly attack speed, dexterity, obviously, within reason. And then also things like elemental damage, increasing elemental damage for the fire, for example, and also the heralds that I'm using. As you can see over here, I've gone to the herald damage and increased that. So using all the heralds actually helps me there. And then down here again, movement speed over here. And so most of the time it's to do with attack speed or movement speed. That's what I want to emphasize. Let's go back to the gems then. So just to reiterate, you know, the explosive shot is the star of the show, and then the three heralds are the support acts as well. And you can see maybe I haven't optimized those as well as I should, but I've got them going. Now you would say, okay, well, how do I manage that if I'm not getting spirit gear? So I have got some spirit gear, and I think I've got spirit on the rings, possibly. I'm not sure where the rest of the spirit is coming from, but I got spirit from somewhere. And then I might also have certainly I've got it from the cloaked mail. I mean, that's giving me plus 43 to spirit. And then I'm also getting reduced requirements as well. Also from this tree here, you can see there's a reduced reservation of herald skills, hence why I've been able to afford more on the spirit. But I think I'm getting spirit from somewhere else. Just can't remember exactly where that is. But anyway, you get the idea. So if you can get up to a reasonable amount of spirit, and you will do in the end game, potentially, you know, then you can afford the three heralds, you know, if that's the way you want to go. I even have, if we actually scroll down a little bit, I even have, for example, Defiance banner going, and for a time I had Overwhelming Presence going. So, you know, again, more spirit gems, more buffs, you know, persistent buffs. You know, my kind of playstyle is I'm all about the passive. I'm all about the passive stuff, meaning if I can shoot and concentrate on rolling things like that. I don't want to have to press multiple buttons if I don't have to, you know, and that's the way that I play. Lazy one button rotation, hence why I call the build that. You know, the idea is do as much damage as you can to packs of mobs, but also have effectiveness against bosses. Okay, so the only thing I would say is if you're building this from level one, it's going to be, yeah, if you're a ranger, you've got bow, you know, bow skills and all that, go mad with that. If you want to go crossbow from level one, I would say as soon as you can get high velocity rounds, swap into that and start building that with scatter shot, and you probably have two sockets, so scatter shot and martial tempo. Those are the key two items there. That then gives you three shots off of your crossbow, three projectiles, I should say, off of your crossbow per reload. Martial tempo offsets the attack speed. As soon as you can, get piercing, but only for explosive shot. So when you're in high velocity rounds, only up till level 22, I think it is, then you get your explosive shot, then you're good to go. And the other thing I would say as well is, you know, being a bow build, you know, as a ranger, you happily use, you know, whatever, you can use your bow as well. Have that, you know, I was having on my right hand click up to level 22 until I got explosive shot, that bow led attack, which was one of the ones that caused everyone to kind of freeze in a hail of ice. I can't remember what it's called. I'm sure I could find it somewhere. But yeah, I think, you know, not to take away from that, you want to build whatever does as much damage as possible until you get to you know, you're unlocking your explosive shot, and then you're good. You're off to the races with that. Okay. As time goes by, please check in with the channel. I'll have more videos on this. Thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate it, and see you next time.